Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the HKGAG podcast. Today we have Aldi with us. Aldi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, guys. My name is Odi. I'm from Hong Kong. I'm a secondary student. Secondary three. I'm 14. Yeah.
And today's topic is going to be about ethnic minorities in Hong Kong. So, Aldi, you are an ethnic minority. Is that correct in Hong Kong?
Yes, I am an ethnic minority.
Okay. Let's start off. What do you think your experience as an ethnic minority is in Hong Kong, just in general? Give us a brief introduction.
Well, most of the time, people are nice. They're nice to me, but sometimes you'd encounter those so-called racist people. You know what I mean?
That experience racism or like discrimination in general
Yes, I
on a
have.
regular basis.
Well, not really on a regular basis, because sometimes people say that I look kind of local, but yeah, sometimes I'd
Okay.
experience racism.
Um, have you ever encountered any of your friends who? Wait, I should ask this first. Do you have a lot of ethnic minority friends?
Yeah,
Ask
you
this
can say
first.
that. You can say most of my friends are ethnic minorities.
I see. I see. So do you experience a lot? Do your friends experience a lot of racism and discrimination, or is it the same as you?
Well, yeah, some of them more than others.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, most of my friends are ethnic minorities since I go to a school where 60%, 60-70% are ethnic minorities.
Okay. So I'm interested. Is this a school that uses English or Cantonese? If it's Cantonese, do you find a difficulty, or is it
Uh, uh
easy for
well,
you to
well,
understand?
it depends on which class you choose. There's a non-Chinese class which is based in English, and a local class which is based in Cantonese.
I see. I see. So you're in English class or the local class?
The English class.
I see. Okay. Right. So, in general, how would do you? Let me just ask this: do you use English or Cantonese more at home, or like another language?
At home, since I'm Filipino, we speak Filipino here, but most of the time, we use English to communicate.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because English is the second language in the Philippines, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just so has your family ever experienced any discrimination in Hong Kong? Like any serious discrimination, especially from authorities? Have they ever experienced like from the local guy from any kind of discrimination like that?
Well, from my family, not really any that I know of. But yeah, I know like my friends have experienced some because they've talked about it. I have experienced some.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Has it ever gotten like especially bad for like for you as a minority?
Well, yes, I've experienced quite a bit of bullying back in primary school.
Yeah. Um, but now that you're in secondary school, have they calmed down a bit or have they remained more or less the same?
Well, yeah, it's come down a lot since, like I said, around 60-70% of students in my school are ethnic minorities. But sometimes between the ethnic minorities, there'd be some conflicts.
Oh, can you elaborate on that?
Sometimes, okay, let's say, uh, people from country A dislike people from country B, and then they get into arguments, and sometimes it could even get into like a fight.
Happen often or is it like a rare occurrence? Like semi-rare, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's a really rare occurrence, but sometimes people would have their disagreements because of our cultural backgrounds.
So it's kind of based on like race and that.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Um, so the question: how, like, I presume, um, have you any experienced any language barriers with like Cantonese, like you or your family or like anyone else that some people may not be as good in Cantonese as others.
Well, for me, my Cantonese is decent. I can communicate. I can write. I can speak. like in Cantonese. Yeah, I can understand
Mm.
Cantonese. So, well, I haven't really experienced that much language barriers between the Chinese. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You mentioned you were from the Philippines, right?
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry. This might. I'm just interested. What area of the Philippines are you like from Luzon, Mindanao, or the
Oh,
other islands?
I'm
Like
from
your family.
I'm from the Quezon province.
Oh, okay. I didn't lose on. Like, is that around Quezon? Or just somewhere else? Oh no, wait. It's on Luzon.
Yeah, it's in Luzon.
Ah, I see. So, just got a question. Most of your friends who are from the Philippines, um, are they mostly from Luzon or from other provinces? Like, out of interest.
Well, I don't really ask where my like if they're from the Philippines, I don't really ask where they're from.
Yeah. So sorry, I was just interested. Um, sorry. Question. Sorry. Um. So you mentioned how you use English more than other languages, right?
Yeah, 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 I do.
Yeah. Um. So do you often like briefly mentioned the language barrier. Like if you go to any like government agency like a hospital, do you often like find some difficulties or is this more or less you know, same?
Well, for me, I don't really find any difficulties, but I would see some people who don't really understand Cantonese. Like I've seen some people who don't understand Cantonese have some difficulties communicating with the people at the reception.
All right. How do you think authorities in Hong Kong can in general improve on being more accommodating to people who don't know Cantonese as much?
Well, I know that government agencies, most of them, are able to speak English on a basic level, which is okay. But I think that they could maybe try to learn basic communication of other large ethnic minorities in Hong Kong, like Filipinos and Pakistanis and Indians. Like they should learn like basic communication.
So you're saying that everyone needs to learn basic Cantonese. Yeah, that makes more sense. But would you also
or
argue?
or or
Yeah,
the government could provide like Cantonese classes for
yeah,
ethnic minorities in Hong Kong. You know.
yeah. Do you know of any local Makaifong activities like that organize these Cantonese classes? Do you know any such activities?
Well, I haven't heard of any.
Um, oh, it just seems like something that local local organizations should do to accommodate more of the ethnic minority population. Because I know that most Hong Kongers are proficient in English, and there is accommodation for English in other languages, but at the same time, you could be doing a lot better to accommodate a more bilingual society. Or I should say multilingual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, I'll just drink some water.
Yeah, no problem. Take
So
your time.
that's you were born in Hong Kong, right? You were born and raised, right?
Yeah, yes, I was born and raised in Hong Kong.
Okay, so in kindergarten and primary school, did you go one that used English or Cantonese?
Well, my kindergarten, I went to a English speaking one. Then in primary school, I went to a government school which uses Cantonese.
Ah, yeah. So I assume that's in primary school you started picking up more about your Cantonese, right?
Yeah, and in like primary five, I switched to a English based school
I
because
see.
yeah, Chinese, like I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, you found it. I presume you found it a lot easier. Right?
Yes, yes, I found it a lot easier in the English school.
This is gonna be another question about because I'm not very familiar with the local school system as some others. So just when you were in the system, are there a lot of people who go to English? A lot of ethnic minorities that go to English, like schools that teach to use English as their medium of instruction, or do most people just go to Cantonese schools?
Well, when I went to the Frick, wait, let me fix my mic.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, I thought it was mine cussing out, but take your time.
Okay.
I can
Can
hear
you hear
you.
me? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So when I went to the English primary school, I was expecting to see a lot more ethnic minorities, but like surprisingly, I found that um, the number of ethnic minorities in my primary school was around, like the English one was around the same as the government one I went to. And in my secondary school now, the one I go to, um, most of the students that studied primary school in Hong Kong, most of the ethnic minorities actually came from a Chinese speaking primary school.
I see. So that kind of explains like why more and more different minorities. Would you say no Cantonese more in the same
Well,
way
yeah,
that?
yeah, but sometimes, like my primary school, the Chinese one, the government one, they didn't really provide any resources for the non-Chinese students, which made it really hard for us to learn Cantonese.
So how do you think these local schools can do better in accommodating this issue? How can they better tackle this issue? I should say.
Well, now it's getting better. But like when I was in primary 3 or primary 4, they started integrating these non-Chinese resources. Like they started focusing more on the non-Chinese students, but there's room for improvement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you think of any like ways, just general, just like saying more resources, maybe hiring more teachers that are more proficient in English as well as Cantonese? Would you think that would benefit?
Yes, I think that would benefit a lot since my like when they started providing more non-Chinese resources, the teachers who taught the non-Chinese students didn't uh, exactly have the best English, if you know what I mean.
I think I get what you mean. So yeah, because some Hong Kongers have very strong Hong Konger like English
Yeah,
accent. Yeah,
yeah,
just
yeah, like really
I think I get what
choppy
you
English.
mean. Yeah. Um. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine.
So, would you say that what would you say are the biggest issues facing ethnic minorities in general in Hong Kong?
Ethnic minorities in general, as always, like in everywhere else in the world, ethnic minorities face a lot of racism, no matter where in the world you are. Yeah.
You say it's more, especially more prevalent in Hong Kong compared to other countries in Asia, or like even
Well,
worldwide.
I'm not really sure since I've never really been to any other country.
See.
Yeah. But
Um.
yeah, I can say that well, us Filipinos are being discriminated here in Hong Kong. If a Chinese person goes to the Philippines, they'd probably get discriminated on as well.
Yeah, because in Hong Kong, especially specifically Filipinos, Indonesians as well, many people associate them with domestic helpers, and it's just kind of like that forced stereotype that's
Yeah, yeah,
something that's
yeah.
more
Like
prevalent.
if you are a Filipino in Hong Kong, they they assume you're a domestic helper or something, or one of your family members is a domestic helper.
Yeah, it's just I think people need to understand that there's more. Not all
The,
Tagalog's in Hong Kong are domestic helpers or domestic helpers connected. Like some are here just to it's
yeah,
just people. Well, everyone's just like us, no matter of their status or how they came to Hong Kong.
yeah.
I just want to ask a question. Did your parents come from the Philippines, or they also raised in Hong Kong? It's like a
Well, both my parents were born in the Philippines, but my mom has spent part of her life here. She also, if I remember, she studied part of her, like she had part of some of her studies here in Hong Kong.
so for that. So wait, was this like secondary school, or like university or primary?
I'm not really sure. I think it was university.
Ah, I see.
I'm not sure.
Um, so yeah, so you raised in Hong Kong and born in Hong Kong. So
Yes, I was born
yeah,
and
because I was
raised in
just
Hong
like
Kong.
thinking of things to say. Would you say that the government is doing enough to help ethnic minorities, or they should be doing a lot more? Like, is it sufficient for ethnic minorities in Hong Kong?
Well, the government, I can see that the government is trying to help the ethnic minorities, but as always, there is room for improvement. Like I said, the government could train the government staff, like police officers and fire department and hospital staff, to speak other languages, like basic communication in like I know they understand English, but like basic communication in Filipino, Urdu, Hindi, etc. Yeah, or yeah,
Are you saying that more people in the government should be more proficient in these languages? Like the government needs to hire
or
people.
the government, like I said, the government could provide Cantonese classes, like free Cantonese classes for the ethnic minorities in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Um, I'm just drinking some water. Do you face any like I said, any cultural language, any cultural barriers in general? Like, do you face any culture shocks, or have basically you basically don't face these issues, or are they prevalent?
Well, since I was born and raised here, I don't really follow a lot of this Filipino stuff. Since I was born and raised here, I am more accustomed to the Hong Kong stuff. Yeah,
So you just
go with the flow. I
it
just go
goes
with the
with flow.
flow.
Yeah, I think like this is very. I think there's like a very misinterpreted Asia, if you can say, for a lot of ethnic minorities. Would you say that a lot of there's a stereotype that a lot of ethnic minorities are all immigrants and not people who've been living here for a few generations? Would you say that it's a stereotype, or is that something else?
Well, I'd say that it's not really a stereotype, since my family is has been here for, I think, two generations, one or two generations. Uh, yeah. Well, I know that a lot of people, a lot of my friends as well, in my school, I think, in my class, there is four I think four or five students that when they started studying in my school, they just arrived in Hong Kong.
See, so yeah, because like from personal experience, I've seen a lot of people who see it's generally not a very good stereotype. It's not. It's generally a very terrible stereotype of ethnic minorities who it is always associated with very negative connotations, and it's generally something that that generally the younger generation has begun to ignore and more progress. I feel like this is very much an issue with the older generations from personal
Yes, yes.
experience.
Yeah.
So you when you do face discrimination, like when your family or your friends or any close people in your life, would you say that they've have faced discrimination more from the older generations, the younger generations? Like I'm talking like
Well,
50, 60,
in
70.
my experience, most of the time it would be from a older generation. Yeah, but most of the time I try my best to ignore whatever they say. Like, if they tell something to me, I just say, "Oh, sektung mana, oh, sektung mana."
Oh, I see. So you like do some people like say slurs to you in a way? Like
Yeah, yeah. I've heard some people call me "fei zao zai" or "hat zai." Yeah, a lot of slurs. Like, I'm not even that dark skinned, and they'd call me "fei zao zai" for no reason.
I think it's just like routine, just
Yeah,
it's
I think it's like a name for non-Chinese people. I don't
I
know.
think it's just a name for dark skinned people. Like I know there is a words that I'm not gonna say it, but for those who are listening, you might know this. That is used to describe South Asians and like South Asians, especially Indians and Nepalis, because they're the most
Oh
working.
yeah, I've heard that one. I think I know what you're talking about. I've heard that one as well.
Yeah, and I think most people listening would probably know what it is, but in general, I think it's one of the things that it's kind of definitely astounds me that I mean, it doesn't really surprise me that a lot of people are very more conservative towards issues like discrimination, and it's definitely something that's a byproduct of the culture we live in. But that's not really an excuse to be discriminative to others just because
Yeah,
of something
yeah,
that's
because
out of their control.
yeah, people say that people are not born with hate. Hate is taught. Have you heard that saying?
Yeah, I've heard that saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was gonna say, um, have you, in like any like you mentioned earlier, like most of your friends are ethnic minorities, right?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of my friends are
Um,
ethnic minorities, but I
have you
also
faced any
have.
discrimination? Okay, let
Yeah,
me continue.
you continue. It's fine.
Okay, I was about to ask, have you already faced any discrimination from any of your peers who are local, like Hong Kong Chinese, like Hong Kongers?
Well,
What I
well,
mean.
yes. Some of my local Hong Konger or local Chinese friends, they sometimes discriminate against me for I know it's not on purpose. Yeah, sometimes it's unconsciously saying like really
Uh,
mean stuff about non-Chinese people.
have
Yeah,
you have you this is more on the personal, but have you asked them to stop, or have you talked to someone about
yeah.
that?
Sometimes I'd ask them to stop because since I like some people say that I speak Chinese so well, and when I talk to them, they'd forget that I'm non-Chinese.
Hmm.
So sometimes they'd accidentally say some of this stuff that would be pretty offensive to ethnic minorities.
Yeah. Um, would you say that this is because of uh? Would you say this is mostly something that they kind of can't grow out of, or is it something? Is this kind of like a societal thing? Like, is it something that's societal, or just kids be, kids being stupid in a way? Sorry.
Well, there are a lot of stereotypes in Hong Kong, so it's probably more of a societal thing. There's a lot of non-Chinese stereotypes here.
Yeah. Because from personal experience, like when I was like starting in secondary, I made a lot of friends with a lot of people who were Indian, and my mom kept calling them, the word, and I
Yeah,
eventually call them 人到人or 阿媽人士, like please don't do that, because I don't. I'll admit, when I was much younger, I probably said some things and thought some things that probably wouldn't be the best to ethnic minorities. I think
yeah.
acknowledging that you fucked up and just moving on and trying to fight for change is something that is something that I think a lot of people are doing and should do. Opinion.
Say
Anyways,
again.
sorry. I was just saying how when you're young, you say a lot of shit that you don't really understand. It's like you say again, it's like
Yeah, like
yeah,
I've
and
heard a lot
just
of people from my primary school say the N word. Like
yeah.
they don't really know what it means. They think it's like cool, so they just say it.
I,
Just say it out
def-
loud.
I definitely could have related to that when I was much younger, like primary school, like
Yeah,
very early secondary school. Like
yeah. Like primary six
yeah,
boys, especially primary six boys, they say a lot of weird stuff.
yeah. Just in general, just some people are just immature and
Yeah,
they need
you
to grow out.
you'll mature. Yeah, most of them would mature.
Oh, thanks. Also very mature. Anyways, I was gonna say, um,
Yeah, take your time.
have you? Sorry, I mentioned about discrimination earlier. Have you ever described? Sorry, have you ever experienced any discrimination? Like discrimination in more local areas. Like I'm not taking places. I'm taking places like Yinlong or like um I'm saying about like areas that are more local and less, I guess less liberal.
Yeah, I live in Yunlong, so
I see.
uh, uh, here in the village I live, you know the Bahan area.
Oh yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah, here in the Bahan area, it's the people, especially the older generations, are way more let's say traditional, so they won't really like the uh non-Chinese people.
Would you say more conservative?
Yeah, yeah, more conservative, since um here in the village they're way more like traditional.
Yeah. In those areas, have you experienced discrimination? Any instances of discrimination like recently, or it just has been
Well,
it's not
not
really
really
that?
recently, not really recently, because I have made friends with a lot of the people here. But when I was in primary school, my neighbors, like, yeah, neighbors, they were going to the same primary school as me, and I was bullied a lot by them.
Hmm. So it's just when you were bullied, did you speak out, or you just scouted it, or did you do something else?
Um, I'd rather not talk about that here.
Oh yeah, don't worry. Sorry, I'm so sorry about asking that.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
Sorry. Anyways, sorry. Sorry. Need time. Um, in general, like you mentioned living in Pahang, so just want to expand because I'm never really not really familiar with the area. What's it like to live in Pahang?
Um, One thing I can say, transportation is not very good here.
Or do you go on? So like,
Um, well, here in the village where I live, the like main minibus route is really uh like the drivers sometimes don't follow the route, and sometimes the driver would go on like 15-minute toilet breaks, even if
oh
there's a
yeah,
line of like 50 people waiting.
oh yeah, I experienced with some minibus issues in the past. Like some
Yeah,
minibuses like they go
and
off
also
course.
they drive really dangerously sometimes.
Yeah, it's just I think like minibuses in the rural areas are more prone because there's less cars on the road. You know, they're more
Yeah,
prone to driving faster. You
yeah,
know, Cyclone to Diamond Hill, that's like one of the routes where the minibuses go really quickly, and it's just yeah, it's like you're on a roller coaster. Like you're king on for dear life. Like, oh dear God, make this stop.
yeah. Sometimes the minibuses wouldn't have seat belts, and you'd just be holding onto the handrail,
Uh,
and sometimes you'd feel like it's gonna rip off because you're holding on so hard.
oh yeah, you know they always tell you to wear your seatbelt, but like a lot of times I notice that either seatbelt's like not there, or it's like it's stuck inside.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, so you mainly go to for like your groceries, like your shopping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time. Yeah, yeah, mostly for groceries and shopping. But I go to school in Tunmun.
I see. So do you take the LRT a lot into?
Yeah, yeah. When I get to Siuhong or Tunmun, I take the LRT to my school.
Oh yeah. Okay. Back to ethnic minorities. A bit kind of like leading into a bit with like Western new territories and ethnic minorities. I've talked to a lot of people and I've noticed that there seems to be a lot of ethnic minorities in the Western new territories. Would you say this is true or is this something else? Like
Well, yeah, yeah. You can say it's true in some parts. Like here in this village, where I live, there are a lot of ethnic minorities here. Like not domestic helpers, like residents living here.
yeah. So would you so most of your friends do they live in that area or do they live somewhere else?
No, no, no. They live somewhere else.
I see, I see. Um right. Anyways, um I can't think of any questions. What do you think is like the future of like ethnic minorities in Hong Kong? Like do you think society is gonna become more progressive or are they become or it's just gonna stay around the same with some minor improvements?
Um, well, I'd say it would mostly stay the same unless the Hong Kong people could scrap. Sorry, the mic. I
Yeah, that's
just
fine,
could
don't worry. Continue?
could scrap some of these stereotypes and their scrap some of these stereotypes and what's that word? I think you know what I mean. Like they just scrap some of this racist stuff.
Kind of like social, like
So
norms, like
yes, scrap some of these. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Scrap some of these stereotypes and social
'cause
norms.
I feel like some people they don't kind of like do things because they think it's a norm. Was like everyone's doing it. This doesn't imply to like things like racism and discrimination. It's things like anything in the world. Like I do this because this is the norm.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we're just gonna start wrapping up soon. So Aldi, have anything to say before we close up this episode?
Nothing really.
Oh, okay. Anyways, thank you for coming on here. So I was really awkward. Sorry about that. And
Nah, it's fine. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I hope to get another chance to be on your podcast.
yeah, I think
Like,
that chance will
yeah,
probably appear. We can talk about this topic in more depth, or maybe talk about something else. So yeah, it was
yeah,
definitely great talking to you about this topic. And
yep, sure.
so thank you all for listening, and we'll see you hopefully next time.